It happens, yeah. So it's like kill the head and the body's dead. So I
Hmm.
didn't understand the concept at that time. I didn't understand how to make something run without you having to be there. I
Hmm.
didn't understand that at that time. So hey, lesson learned. Everybody
Absolutely.
doesn't share your same vision, and you can't create a business or a successful business if it's reliant upon you. So I remembered that, and I took that with me as a learning lesson, and I carried forward.
Hi, this is Sean Henry from Sean Henry's Becoming. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no listenership. It's everything you need to make in a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You're listening to Sean Henry's Becoming, a podcast that focuses on the emotional journey of an entrepreneur from the thought of their business to the execution and beyond. I am your host, Sean Henry, a serial entrepreneur, speaker, real estate investor, landlord, 21-year retired Army veteran, and author of When the Bank Says No. I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs to talk about their processes and the lessons they've learned along the way. Fasten your seatbelts. The journey is rough, but rewarding. Welcome to the show, Chester. How are you?
I'm grading you, Sean.
I'm doing amazing. So
Awesome.
let's get into it and tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Uh, I grew up in Miami. I was born and raised. I'm a Florida boy, 305 Dade County.
Okay.
We represent that. Yeah, I grew up down there in Miami, Florida.
Okay. And are you the only child or you have any siblings?
No, I actually have two brothers. They're twins. And I recently found out about 5 years ago I have a sister, a little sister. Well, I didn't find out until my dad passed away that I had a little sister who's like now 20 or something like that.
Okay. Okay. So have you got in contact with her and
Yeah, we
become a big brother?
yeah. When my father passed, we were at the funeral and she was kind of at the house just waiting to see her big brothers. And she was all shy and quiet and we didn't know who she was, but she looked just like my brother. So I was like, that's my dad's daughter. And ever since then, got a chance to talk to her and be big brother, give her some good advice, help guide her down the path. Like if I was an 18-year-old again, I'd be able to tell myself a couple of things. So I was able to do that for her.
So you have your sister now with you. Has she been annoyed by you all yet?
Well, she still lives over in Mississippi where with her mother.
Oh,
So she hasn't been annoyed by us at all. We actually have a chat group that we communicate in and we talk every now and again. And she's one of those new age teens born in the 2000s. So
okay.
her grammar skills are a little bit challenged. And, I tell her, don't talk to me unless you can talk correctly in text and in just regular talk. Just trying to help her get rid of that country twang that she has.
Okay, so I got two things. I was with you until you said get rid of that country twang. My family's from Mississippi.
All right.
Okay,
What part?
my family's from Jackson, Jackson.
Okay.
But I absolutely agree with you in making her speak correctly and text correctly because you can always fall back into, that ebonics,
Right.
for lack of a better term. But you're going to need to know how to write correctly as well as text.
Right.
I did the same thing with my son. So
Right.
kudos to you, big brother, and I'm sure she is annoyed by you
Yeah, she
just
is.
for that.
Yeah, she is.
But it's okay. It's okay. So you grew up in Miami and then relocated to Albany, Georgia in '98.
Yeah.
How was that transition?
Well, we had some things going on down there. where mom just had life wasn't going good, relationship wise with my mom, and she had to relocate. My grandparents, actually, to backtrack a little bit, my great grandmother passed away, and my grandfather just decided that he'd want to move, and him being the patriarch of the family, um, soon after everybody started following suit. And Miami is just not really a city that you wanted to grow up there and you want to live there. It's a great, you know, um, trendy city, but as far as raising a family and things like that, as the modern age started kicking in, and we entered in the 21st century, it was just getting bad and worse. And so it was time to slow it down. And our mom, she just kind of was getting out of that bad relationship and wanted a fresh start. And I'll never forget, I finished my ninth grade year of high school down there. And the day after I finished high school, actually the same day, she picked us up, and within 24 hours we were moved to Albany, Georgia.
So
Craziest
that's
transition.
But listen, I can totally relate. I went to several different elementary schools and middle schools,
Hmm.
and it was the same way. For me, I would come home, and kids, we really don't have a good sense of time.
Right.
So my mom, it seemed like it would be Wednesday, and my mom would be like, "Okay, we're moving," and then on Saturday, the U-Haul truck is pulled up to
Right.
So I definitely understand. So moving from Miami to Georgia, were you able to adapt fairly quickly,
Uh,
or did you have
no, it took
challenges?
I had a ton of challenges. The first was I talked too fast and they talked too slow. Uh, so I remember I played football, and immediately, because it was in June, summer camps were kicking in, and summer practices and things. And I'll never forget going out there on the field, and after practice one day, I was talking to some of the other receivers that I played with, and this guy, this older receiver, he was a senior. He said something about, I mentioned something about how I can play and what I was gonna do on the field, just a little trash talk. And then this guy says something along the lines of he's talking Nord. I'm like, Nord? What is Nord? And I'm like, man, I say I'm from Miami. You got to slow it down. You have to wind it up a little bit, or I couldn't understand him. It's just too slow, and I couldn't understand the country twang again. And he said, "You talking noise?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm talking noise because I could back it up." But I just couldn't understand. They couldn't understand me because I talked fast, and so we just had a little bit of a communication problem and early on. But as I kind of got accustomed to the slower city life, or the slower country life, I'll put it that way, I kind of adapted. And from there, making friends was tough. And just being that new guy. So,
Hmm.
a lot of people have felt that before, but you also get a chance to reinvent who you are and become a better person in that time. But thank God I realized that too.
Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial household?
You know what? I'm gonna say yes to that. Uh,
Hmm.
and I won't go into details to further and explain it. But yes, I had some entrepreneurs that were in distribution in my household, not immediately household, just family members. But some of the cooler ones that I'll actually highlight was my auntie. I'll never forget her selling Avon.
Hmm.
Back when I was a kid, and Avon had this roll-on uh, deodorant back then, and my
24
aunt, yeah, my auntie had a ton of it, and they had it in my granddaddy's like storage closet. And I'll never forget, we used to go in there and just like steal some of her product and use it for deodorant and just play with it sometimes, just because it was a roller, it was a ball, like we were kids. And so we'd be taking that, not knowing that, she was supposed to be trying to sell this stuff. We'd go outside, take a couple outside just to get the ball out, and we go step on them, and the ball shoots out, and all of the deodorant roll on liquid comes out. I mean, we were bad, but I do remember that. Uh, Along with my little cousin selling like Girl Scout cookies. So a couple people had some business minds about themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did Avon at 13, so
Yeah.
I know all about
Oh
Avon.
wow, that's
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
I've always been
And then
fascinated with that company.
because of the deodorant.
Yeah. Well, no, I actually ended up selling Avon in my adult life too, because
Hmm.
I figured I connected so well with women in college. I figured that hey, I might as well be able to sell them things too. So yeah, but I mean, I've always, just the company in general, some of the products, the little small book, like a Jet magazine size, for those that remember Jet magazine, but it was about that size. That's the Avon book. And you always go through and just look at cool stuff. They had the Mickey Mouse stuff in there sometimes, and sometimes you go smell the men's cologne, that type of thing. So yeah, I was always
And so
fascinated by them.
the whole catalog, and then you became the plug for the girls
Right,
before the plug was the plug, right?
right, right.
Another way to meet women.
Yeah, that wasn't hard to do for me, but that's another conversation. Um,
Okay, I love your confidence. Okay,
somebody got to
and
have it.
what's the name of your current business?
Well, I just launched a platform, a startup company called MobiChef. Um, and this platform is just making it easy all around, making it easy for chefs to get booked and paid more frequently and efficiently, and for consumers to have a trusted brand that they can rely on for their culinary needs. So, we just want to provide an ease of use because I started seeing that was a problem early on. Well, a few years ago, let's put it that way. And when I noticed that, the entrepreneur kicked in me, and the compassionate person wanting to help people kicked in, was like, how can you make this work for both? Understanding the side of business. Hey, you're providing a product or a service, and understanding the consumer side, that they're looking for good service, but also not looking to break the bank. So in doing that, I'm thinking, all right, well, I could be a middleman, and understanding that now, where the middleman is, if you don't know, the middleman is at the beach, on planes, at home, raising families, enjoying their money and their life, because this new wave of things called apps was created, and everybody used to always want to cut out the middleman. Well, the middleman got smart. The middleman says, you know what? I'll let you guys cut me out. I'll put something, a platform in front of you, and let you use that platform, while you just pay into that platform and you live through that platform. And from there, I'll just collect the checks on the back end. You never have to hear from me again. So when I noticed that, my eyes lit up and my mind lit up. And, that's where, I started thinking, like, industry wise, I was looking at different industries and what's been disrupted so far. You got Uber disrupted the taxi industry. You got Netflix killed Blockbuster and video warehouse, I meant. And you got Skype killed long distance. You got Airbnb disrupting the hotel industry. You got a lot of different things out here and a lot of disruptors. So I was like, what's next? What is going to be that next big thing? And when I thought about it, I was like, well, food hasn't really been disrupted. There's just been new things and new ways of things for things to happen. I was like, okay, well, what about within food? Right. So when I got to thinking like that, it was like, all right, well, what can a restaurant not do without outside of food? And that's going to be customers, chefs, and people clean it, right? Servers, let's put it that way. So I was like, all right, well, out of those things, what can they absolutely not do without? Somebody to cook the food. And I was like, okay, well, you got chefs there. Okay, well, what's the problem with chefs? They're just cooks inside of restaurants. And I was like, well, chefs aren't able to, or cooks, because they work inside of restaurants, they have to follow a regimen. They have to follow whatever that restaurant says the menu is going to be. They have to follow whatever the ingredients are going to be, and how to cook it, and all this other stuff. And, to me, and I asked this question with a couple of my chefs, that doesn't make you a chef. That just makes you a glorified cook. And
Mhm.
at that point, now you're trading time for money in that scenario. And you're just labeled as a cook, not even a chef, because you're not having your own creative genius at play. So now you're stuck trading time for money, but you don't have time to chase your dream and actually become a chef or do chef like things. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, now chefs need something that way. So got to doing some research and started looking at seeing on Facebook, Instagram, where chefs would, kind of start going in these rants about how customers were ghosting them. They'd send an invoice, tell them their price, and and the customer would ghost them after they get the price or whatever that chef's price was. Or, it'll come time for them to pay the money, and, they don't hear from them anymore. So I was like, okay, well, there's a problem for chefs. And consumers on that end is like, well, these chefs are charging too much. And I agree with both of them. I was like, well, chefs need more reliable clients, and consumers need better pricing. So there's a demand for chefs, and there was a demand for their services, but there's also a demand on the consumer side to save money. So I started looking at, okay, well, where's the balance in between that? And once I looked at those types of those things and those scenarios, I said, okay, well, now I have a problem that I can solve within an industry. And I said, okay, well, if you're going to be able to solve that problem, what are you going to call it? And how are you going to solve that problem? And so I got asking those questions, and I asked the right questions. And then once I realized what I had going on, I started writing some stuff down. And I was driving on the road because I couldn't find a way to make this thing work. Um, and I was like, how can I really bring this concept to life regarding MobiChef? How can I provide a service for chefs as well as a service for customers that's affordable? And I was talking to one of my buddies on the phone, and I think the biggest obstacle I faced at that time was MobiChef having to be a brick and mortar type of location thing where chefs could come and cook food and prepare food. But I was like, well, how many of those places are you going to set up around, the Atlanta area? Because that's where I am right now. How many places are you going to set up? How much is that going to cost? And overhead became a problem. So the idea almost died. But from there, I couldn't figure it out. And I was talking to my buddy, and we were just conversating. And then it hit me, was like, how do I get rid of overhead? Well, get rid of the brick and mortar idea and the concept. Why don't they just cook at home and or cook at someone else's house? Right. And then it hit me. I was like, really? And I was like, I could do that. So I got excited. I hung up on the phone with him. I drove back to where I was staying at the time. I locked myself in the basement, and I didn't see the light of day until like 6 o'clock in the morning. I got in there about 10:30, 11 at night, and I didn't come out until MobiChef was born. I had a fully developed concept, idea, the marketing strategy I wanted to use, just different things, and the way I was going to execute the plan. And from there, I just went to work, and that was back in December 2016. And here we are, full circle now, preparing to launch an app. And we just completed our first year of service. Actually, we launched last year, so we're about to this July. We'll complete our first year of service. Of course, we want to upset the restaurant industry. We want to disrupt the traditional restaurant industry. But we definitely want to invite where we might have a food truck deal, because now we have a platform where anybody that cooks can come through and get vetted by us, and you can put yourself on this trusted platform. So if it's food trucks, we have a food truck, MobiChef, food truck Wednesday or whatever day we do it in cities. And now, because it's a trusted brand, it's a trusted platform, the name sounds great, all these things have come together. Now these food trucks are going to get more business, going to get more clients. And as they're getting booked, if they get, if they make a certain percentage of sales, whatever it is, now we're creating different streams of revenue. So yeah, we have a lot that's going to start coming, that's going to stem from this. But yeah, we just want to scratch the surface, create and establish our niche, or a niche market, if you call it that.
So, Chester, when did you realize you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Okay. To know that and know the answer to that, we can go back a little bit. My uncle, my grandfather's brother, used to work at a place in Albany, Georgia called Bob's Candy. And Bob's Candy used to make nothing but peppermints, from what I can remember. And visiting my uncle every time we came up here for the holidays, he always had a car, junk car full of peppermints, and he'd have a box ready for us, all kinds of just peppermints you would never even think of. And so I used to take those peppermints, and he used to give them to my granddad. And I used to want lunch money, because you'll see kids, the well-off kids coming to school, and they're going and getting cookies and buying cookies at lunch, and, dipping them in milk, and, just having cookie cereal. And I was like, man, I want some of this too. But I knew my mom couldn't afford it. So I was like, all right, I started asking a question like, how can I get some lunch money? Well, I started realizing that my granddad had all these peppermints. I was like, well, what if I do like the candy lady, but I make it a mobile thing? So I started taking peppermints that my granddad had in his bowl at the house for guests and visitors. I started just in the morning going to his house and loading up. because it was free. I didn't have to pay for it. So I was like, all right, well, now I got an inventory. And I would go sell my candies for like 5 and 10 cents. And I'd sell until about lunchtime. And I'd have like 30 to 50 cents by the end of the day, probably more than that, maybe $1 and change or whatnot, to go to lunch and get my cookies or donuts or whatever was available outside of lunch. So it was at those times I realized, like, dang, I actually have a mind for this. Like I'm up here selling something, and that's really it. I wanted to sell stuff. And I was always fascinated with sales representatives and different things like that. And it's like I wanted to get money. I started understanding commission. I used to always love going to Sears, Circuit City when it was around. And Sears now, actually, Sears is shut down. So I wanted to go to those places and just kind of see what the sales reps do. And, lo and behold, it's not as glamorous as I thought, because I actually became a sales rep. But yeah, back then I was in middle school. I realized, like, you know what? I actually like ways to make money. And that kind of put me on that journey of asking questions of how to make this, how can I do this, how can I do that. So yeah, it was selling peppermints in middle school.
And the journey to make money doesn't seem like it was let me go get a job for someone. It was always let me create a way to make money for myself.
Yes. Now, early on, when they ask you what you want to be, my grandfather and dad were garbage men. And I modeled and I wanted to be like the men in the family. At least my grandfather and my dad worked out there with them. And I just wanted to be a garbage man growing up until about fifth grade or so. And you realize once you actually go out to the dump, the smell you can't stick with the smell. But yeah, before that, but right at middle school, yeah, I never thought about working for anybody, or having to, and yeah, the mindset came early on.
Wow. Yeah, I think garbage men are underrated.
Yeah, they are.
It's a very high paying job, and people
Yeah.
don't realize that. Like you
Hmm.
said, I think the smell overshadows a lot.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Most entrepreneurs have had several business prior to finding the one that really takes off. So you told me about the mobile peppermint business in middle school. So what
Right.
about uh, what happened after that?
So middle school, peppermints, and then that kind of segued into some airheads, different candies or whatnot, because my mom kind of bought into that idea of selling candy. So that kind of went into that, and then it fell off. So comes high school. I'm just trying to make football teams. I was playing football, these other sports that I was involved in. Uh, but it wasn't until like later on in high school, like when I moved to Albany, Georgia, that I actually connected with these group of young men. My brothers to this day, but they were throwing parties, and I used to try to hang around because I was an outcast, or at least I felt like it. So I didn't have a group of friends outside of my teammates, and even with them, I wasn't the closest of friends with them. So I just needed somewhere to something to be a part of. So when they offered, I was sitting at their table, and I just kind of said, okay, well, let me, kind of gravitate to these guys. And when I did that, I'm sitting around the table one day, and they're like, "Hey, Chester, you wanna come in on this party with us?" I'm like, "Sure. How much is it gonna cost?" Yeah, you just got to pay $13. We just put $13 together, or something like that. It was some number like that. And I was like, "All right, well, I got to ask my grandma for the money." So I would go ask my grandma and save up and try to get $5 here and there or $3 here and there. And finally, in the next week and a half, I'd have the money to put toward the party so that we can rent the building and we can start, and pay the DJ and we can have our party. So we did that for about 2, maybe 3 years, which is the remainder of my college career. I mean, not college, but high school career. And, we started making that kind of money. So we threw parties. And then after that, college, I got into selling shoes and clothes. Now, this is where that mobile stuff really kicks in, because I used to sell clothes and shoes out of the trunk of my car. I pull up on campus, or, I, go wherever I can and meet up with people and drop shoes off, or, show them my inventory and let them, pick out what they wanted. But then I got a little smarter. I said, well, why don't I set up a website where they can place an order, they can see my inventory, and I don't have to do all this driving around. So I started doing that. That business was actually called Gimme Kicks. I set up a website called Gimme Kicks, and in doing that, people would start ordering. I used to get a lot of orders. I made a ton of money doing it. Um, and to where I cleared 10 figures in 1 month. It was the
Wow.
coolest thing as a broke college kid. It was the coolest thing to clear that kind of money in a month. And so from there, um,
Wait, wait,
I
wait.
had this. Uh-huh.
Wait. You said you cleared 10 figures?
I'm sorry. I said I'm sorry. $10,000.
Oh,
I said 10 figures.
I'm like,
Jesus.
why are we still
That
talking? How
I
are we
love
having
that.
access to
It's
you?
it's 5 figures. 10 divided by two
Okay.
figures. 10 figures. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. I'm just
Listen,
gonna be
wait a
honest
minute.
with you.
Don't be cutting my blessings. Like, I'm just like, I could have just found you somewhere. 10
Hey,
figures. Listen, you're speaking that into existence for me. I will interview someone that's making
that's
10
that's that's
figures, and
that's
maybe
that's
you.
a mindset. Yeah, that's a mindset. We all would love to get the 10 figures. That's a whole lot of money.
That's
That's a whole lot of zeros. But yes, I guess my mind was just somewhere else. But 10 divided by two figures, which is five, right?
still a
So we
lot of
got
money. Still a lot of
right.
money for a high school college student.
Yeah, so we cleared 5 figures in a month. I had a business partner at the time who did the design and more so the technical side of it. I was the sales side, and it worked good. But to see that as a young college student and kid was just awesome. But I had to shut that business down because it was, to be honest with you, operating illegally per the customs and border protection, all this other stuff that goes on. I didn't have the proper paperwork to order that many shoes and all this other stuff. So I had to shut that business down because I didn't want any companies coming at me for the little 10 divided by two figures that I had made. I got back into partying, right? And it came to a point where I networked myself into taking over a popular bar in my alma mater, near my alma mater. And it came to the day prior. I had people ready to go, telling my family, hey, I'm taking over a bar, applying for my liquor license. I mean, I'm just getting all this paperwork ready. And I had people that were going to financially back the inventory and the initial startup and everything. And I didn't have any paperwork in place with them, no agreements or anything. It was just on a trusted word is bond handshake. So 2 days prior to me taking over the uh, the bar, I get a phone call from the wife of the person that I was wanting to do business with, and she said to me, she said, Chester, do you ever have a gut feeling about something, and God tells you about things? I'm like, yeah, all the time. And she was like, well, I had to pray on this really hard, um, and we just can't go forward with it. And I'm like hell, you can't. And it's just in my mind, like, why not? And she started asking, she couldn't get behind. It was a hookah business that I wanted to start. And I wanted to open up like a hookah lounge in Valdosta, Georgia. And she's like, Chester, do you smoke? I was like, no, I don't smoke the tobacco. She's like, so how can you sell something that you don't partake in? It's like, easy. You just sell it, you know?
Right.
And that was my mindset. But for her, she had to have, some value or some meaning behind it. And they couldn't get behind me with it, and they backed off. And this was 2 days prior. So now here I am crying because I got to tell a woman who I've been, a place that I've been, a bar that I've been working at, throwing, having the little events there and helping them make money. I have to go to them and I have to tell her that, hey, I'm not going to be able to go through with this business deal. So I couldn't show my face around that place for quite some time, and I was just embarrassed. I couldn't face, well, my family, but whatever. We were good there, but just the people that I was about to bring on and I was talking to, I had to go ghost. I had to lay low for a while, and I was hurt. I was ashamed, but I had to get back on that saddle. You can't keep a good dog down. I knew I had to move on. I had to figure something else out. And in that time, I'll actually tell you and backtrack a little bit. In that time, I actually started what is now my family's barbecue business. So while I was at that bar, me and my youngest uncle, we started, our granddad or his dad, my grandfather, had a sauce that the family just loved. Everybody that had his barbecue, they know about Clarence Cow. They know about CC's barbecue sauce, right? So he decided to put a label on it and bottle it up. So I took his bottles and I just started barbecuing meat. And at that same bar, I would start selling ribs, hamburgers, hot dogs, that type of stuff. And I put my granddad's sauce on it and let him have at it. So between 12 and 3, we made a ton of money. The bar didn't like that because we weren't giving them a percentage. We would just give them free food. That's just the barter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, they tried to muscle us into helping them get more profit by saying, hey, if y'all are going to set up here, y'all got to set up inside of the bar or on the deck. And people have to come in just to get a plate. Well, that didn't last long because we were like, all right, well, we'll just shift our business somewhere else. So we left the bar area. And of course, the business the business deal broke down and we went somewhere else and we were doing our thing. So I wanted to establish a kitchen, CC's barbecue as a kitchen. I wanted to transition that to where the kitchen that was inside of that restaurant and a bar, I wanted to establish that as CC's barbecue, and where we can cook and serve meals out of the kitchen in there. But again, when it fell through, there was no need for us to even try to be over there anymore. So we just started on another side of town selling barbecue.
I want to give, if you don't mind, a little bit of your
No problem.
age during these different periods, just
Okay.
as inspiration to other people. First, the the peppermint business, the peppermint mobile
Mhm.
business. How old were you at that time?
I had to be every bit of like 12, 13, 12 or
Okay.
13. Yep.
And then your motivation for the peppermint business was just because you wanted to find a way to earn extra money to purchase the desserts and things like that with your school
Right.
lunch.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And then your the parties that you started
Right.
with the guys in high school. How
Hmm.
old were you then?
About 15, 16, 17. That's what those years were.
So let me ask you about that. Okay.
Hmm.
How does a 15, 16 year old throw or start a business, a party business, party promoting business? What were the parties being held at a actual establishment, or was this at someone's home?
Well, we had a couple of locations. We kind of bounced around.
Hmm.
Um, in Albany, we used to call it behind Heilig Myers. It was just the Albany Board of Realtors. That was one of the places that we really gained some how do you want to say it? Gained attention. I'll put it that way. And people started coming there. So we had the behind Heilig Myers, Albany Board of Realtors. We had uh, what was the other place? There was Price and Price Barbershop. There was a church one of my buddies had. His dad was like a pastor there or something, and it was a makeshift church.
You threw a
But
party at a church
it, it
with
wasn't.
secular music.
Yeah. So it was not necessarily, it was a rundown kind of thing. It wasn't still a church, I guess. They
Hmm.
used it and the equipment was still there, all that stuff. But if you walked in, you wouldn't think it was a church. It was just like an office building.
Wow.
So we had parties there. Then we had this other place called the Albany JC's. The JC's was another place that we rented that was a bigger location. It was away from things. Police wouldn't have to be called. And so, we just kind of bounced around through those locations. And then we got big and got into a hotel party. Uh,
So wait,
but
let me ask you. So
mhm,
were all of you around the same age? Like, who was the
yeah,
adult in the group?
most of us were like 16, 17, and I think maybe an 18-year-old. I doubt it though, but we were like 16, 17-year-olds. All of
So
us were in high school still.
so adults are entrusting some teenagers, not only teenagers, but teenage boys to
Right.
throw parties in their
Well,
buildings.
well, we may have had an adult, present during these bookings, But that was something that wasn't. I didn't always handle that stuff.
Okay.
That was somebody else that handled that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think his mom helped us out a lot with that.
Okay. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand this.
Right.
I'm
Right. Right.
just trying to wrap my head around that a little bit. Okay. And then you went from the parties to Gimme Kicks.
Hmm.
How were you funding the shoes? Because you have to have inventory prior
Right.
to a sale.
Right, right. So that worked two ways. I'll tell you about the flip, right?
Hmm.
So initially, yes, student loans, I still owe that money.
Hmm.
Um, we all do, at
Hmm.
least most of us.
Hmm.
But I started taking my student loans and started taking part of the money and putting it into the shoe order, my initial shoe orders. And what I do is I started taking like pre-orders. That way I knew I'd be selling out and how much money I'd do. So eventually it became net. Like I'm not just gonna order stuff that I have to try and sell. I'm gonna only place an order when I have enough orders already pre-orders, and then I'll order stuff and it's just inventory that I have to issue back out to people, whether I'm sending shoes and things like that. So eventually it became that type of thing where I didn't have to put any more money into it. My money just started flipping
So
and I just started reinvesting what I was making.
how did you get the pre-orders?
Well, I was in college. I mean, I was on a football team. I was in a fraternity, and then on top of that, I was just like a very charismatic person. So I would, I had no problem being a salesman and telling people, "Hey, I sell shoes and clothes." I had a notebook that I'd let people just like flip through pages of the shoes and the inventory I had, and then they'd start asking questions. Oh, can you get these? Can you get these? And I'd go, look, yeah, okay, good. Send me this money, or I meet up. It was PayPal, or you can meet up and give me cash. It wasn't no Cash App and all that stuff. So, I'd be like, hey, let me, and even with PayPal, I'd send an invoice. I kind of legitimized my business that way. But yeah, I'd just collect the money and then I'd place the order. Or if I had the money, I'd front the order, and then when it came in, I'd collect the money at that time.
Wow. And okay, so when you were Gimme Kicks, how old were you?
I was about 21, 21.
Okay.
Yep, 21,
And you're
22.
still an athlete at this time. Are you still playing at on
Yeah,
okay.
I was playing college football, doing that, and I was also in the Marine Corps at the time.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was doing a lot. Hmm.
Okay. So let me just tell you something. Anybody who's listening to this who has an excuse, just blow it up because you're in the Marines,
Right.
you're a full-time student,
Yep.
right? Or a
Yep.
part-time student.
No, I was full time.
Full-time student, you're in the Marines, you
Yep.
have your own business, Gimme Kicks,
Hmm.
you're taking orders, you're filling the orders. So you're running this business,
Hmm.
being the CEO all the way to the salesman
Right. Yep.
while doing all of these things in a 24-hour period
Oh yeah.
at 21.
At 21, 22 years old. Yep.
Okay. I'm just laying it out there for those who say they don't have time and they have all these excuses. So then after CC's barbecue, you started that business. So around the same
Hmm.
time, 25, 26, 27.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then what happened after that?
Well, that fell through due to I wanted to move my uncle in a house. I bought a house. Well, not bought, I leased a house in Valdosta for my son's mother, who was pregnant at the time, and it was a 3 bedroom deal. So I wanted to move my uncle in, let him stay, and let him, while I was at work, let him run and set up the meat and do all the errands that it took to get ready for the night to sell barbecue. Well, she wasn't comfortable with my uncle staying there, and that's a whole nother story. But anyway, because of her feelings toward my uncle and thoughts or whatever, we had to kill the business because I couldn't go get him. He couldn't stay down there. It was just costing more money for me to go pick him and commute to go get him from Albany and bring him down every weekend or every week, just about. Um, to where he can only stay a night and then be gone. So that fell through the water, or fell through the whatever you want to call it. It fell through, and bye bye CC's barbecue at that time.
To be an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient. you have to be persistent. You can't. You mentioned with the when the bar business went down, you
Hmm.
talked about how you the embarrassment and the shame. And honestly, I feel like as an entrepreneur, because our vision is so big, when something fails, honestly, it's really not a failure.
Right.
It's a setback at that point, but it definitely propelled you into bigger and better businesses. And I always say, you don't live and lose, or you don't learn and lose, or you don't win and lose. You win or you learn. So
Right.
each one of these businesses, it seemed like you just got better and better and better with everything, from your fascination with sales. In every single business that you've named so far, it was a cell entity in there
Right.
somewhere, and that you created. You got better from the peppermints. You didn't have any
Hmm.
overhead because it was
Right.
you're getting this that's from somebody else,
Free
and they're
inventory. Yeah.
exactly, your inventory is free. And then
Yeah.
um, you go into the hookah, or the party business, where
Right.
someone is giving you their buildings,
Right.
and then you're continuing to go. And then even with Gimme Kicks, you had a small inventory, or and then you transition to, no, I'm not going to have the inventory, we're going to pre-order this thing. So you go
Right.
back to, no, I'm not, I don't have, you cut down the overhead a little bit more. And
Right.
so
Right.
each time it sounds like you are continuing to it's like a running, a live document. You're continuing to
Right.
edit each move, and you're getting
Right.
bigger and better at each time.
I started a media company called Night Vision, where we went out to those same bars that were competition at the time. We went out to those owners, and they paid us to come into their club to take pictures of their people. We built a great following of over 2,500 followers, and basically likes on Facebook at the time, because that was the big thing, having a page. And so still on that page to this day, we have well over 2,000 people that like that page and still go back from time to time and like the pictures that we took. And just it's a dip, or a blast from the past, kind of. Every now and again, we'll share a picture that I see, or something that was cool from those years ago. But also within that same time, I started Night Vision, and then I started a mobile hookah business. All right, so now we were back into that same baseline of mobile.
Hmm.
The Night Vision, we were a mobile photography, kind of event photography kind of business at that time, going around to different clubs. Then I started Hookah Vision. Hookah Vision was a mobile hookah unit where we had, again, hookah girls that would go around to different bars, and we'd set up and we'd serve hookah at that time. Now, this was back in like 2010, 2011, before that really took off, like the hookah in the clubs. And we were in South Georgia, so before it really took off, we were doing that, and I established one of the first, actually the first, mobile hookah business in South Georgia. And from there, we were getting booked. And what happened with that is I moved to Atlanta. I relocated, and the person I had down there managing the business didn't share the same vision. So bye bye hookah vision, bye bye night vision. Couldn't transition it to Atlanta because I didn't have the same network that I had in Valdosta.
So that
Uh,
network of people is very important. I was going to ask you about that.
mhm, mhm.
So
So go ahead.
do you agree that your network is your net
Is
worth?
Yeah, yes, your network is your net worth. I fervently believe that. I understood that from a long time ago, and I always used to ask the question, how can I leverage my network, the people that I know, how can I leverage them for a profitable gain of some sort? Not screw them over or anything like that. How can I leverage my network to gain something, to get more of whatever it is? And yeah, I understood that early on.
Hmm. Okay, so we went from, and it sounds again like when your network isn't reliable, or they're not on the same page, or when we take you out of the equation, or not necessarily out of
Mm-hmm.
the equation, but when we have to, when you're transitioning, it seems like the people don't want to transition with you. So it's almost like as long as you are at the forefront of everything in this
Right.
location,
Mm-hmm.
then everything works well.
Yeah.
But as soon as
So
you pivot, then it falls apart.
it happens, yeah. So it's like kill the head and the body's dead. So I
Hmm.
didn't understand the concept at that time. I didn't understand how to make something run without you having to be there. I
Hmm.
didn't understand that at that time. So hey, lesson learned. Everybody
Absolutely.
doesn't share your same vision, and you can't create a business or a successful business if it's reliant upon you. So I remembered that, and I took that with me as a learning lesson, and I carried forward. And between this time, I had a failed relationship. So these were all successful failures.
Hmm.
I'll put it that way. So leading up to this, I had a failed relationship that I wasn't ready for, and that sent me into a spiral of depression and just defeat. I mean, any D word, dumbness, whatever words you want to use with
Hmm.
D's and, hurt, whatever. It got me to that point where I was crying every day, couldn't figure it out, losing weight because I'm so stressed out about life going forward from the relationship standpoint, why I failed, and still having to try to move along, move on. And when I was trying to figure, as I was trying to figure it out, I had a buddy call me and introduced me to a concept called network marketing, and I didn't know what it was at the time. I kind of had an idea. People shunned it because they call it pyramid schemes and all these other things, right? So, I was like, yeah, I'll join your pyramid scheme. Whatever it is, I'll join it because I just needed an opportunity. I needed something that was gonna bring me out of this depressive hole that I was in and this spiraling path to where I felt, worthless. So got into that, and that was like in 2012. That started my personal development journey. From there, and I'll explain it the best way I can explain it is this way. Imagine you get a cut on your arm or an open sore. Eventually, that sore is going to heal, right? If you let it heal on its own, it's going to be a pretty bad scab, and then it's going to be a even nastier scar because you didn't put anything in its place to help give it nourishment to help it heal, right? So that's how I had to visualize my life. It's like I had a void in my life, and if I don't fill it with something, either way, it's gonna heal. If I don't fill it with something that's going to be good and good for me going forward, then it's going to be all bad scarring. It's going to be bad things. So at that time, that's where I saw my depression, all my hurt, and my love loss. I saw that as a hole in my spirit, in my body, in my mind. So I had to start filling that stuff up with things. And thank God that, you know, I was introduced to network marketing when I was, because I started reading more. I started understanding that, Chester, you've made a lot of mistakes, you made a lot of bad decisions, but you still can come out of that. You can still turn things around. You can still be successful despite the way you feel about yourself or what others may feel about you. You can reinvent yourself, because that wasn't your end all be all. You're not dead, you're still here. So that means you have some type of purpose. So I went and I became a different person. And through that journey, there were still parts of me that I had to get rid of, but it was a process. I kept trying to get my relationship back, thinking I got it together now. I'm thinking ahead. Oh yeah, I got it together. I got it made. But that wasn't it yet. It's like God kept telling me, Chester, you ain't ready. You ain't ready. You ain't ready for her. You ain't ready to have that family. You're not ready for it. You got to keep going. So I was like, all right, God, I surrender. Whatever you got for me, just I'll let it be you. Whatever you got for me, let's go with it. So that lasted until about 4 years of reading, traveling, learning, listening to leadership, listening to Eric Thomas, listening to Les Brown, listening to all these other leaders and mentors who people I surrounded myself with, and getting motivated about life all over again and my journey that I was taking part in. Now, in these years, I was dead broke. I had quit my job because of other factors. I wasn't happy, and I knew that I needed to take a leap of faith, but just dead broke, but still finding a way. How can I make money? How can I do things? And network marketing showed me a lot about myself, and revealed a lot to me that I wasn't ready to admit in my proud form. But once I opened myself up, I quickly saw that, I was on a failure curve in life, and I need to change that. So, um, you know, that was that part. So 2016, that was the end of network marketing for me. I lost the passion for it. It's still a great thing. People still hit me up because I was became a leader here in the Atlanta, Georgia area in one of the companies, and I did pretty well. But I just lost the passion for continuing to try to convince people and talk to people along those lines. I lost the passion for sales in that regard. And, just the recruitment, having to recruit teams, I just lost the passion for it because I got what I felt personally burned by the people, some of the people that were more selfish than compassionate and considerate. So network marketing, if I had to tell, the message is good as a whole, but you have to watch out for some of the people and who you surround yourself with. And I say the same thing about when it comes to religion and going to church, different things. You have to be careful who you let into your personal space, into your mind, into your body, into your soul and your spirit, because those people manipulate it how they see fit and to their benefit. So you have to be mindful of those people. So it's okay to join organizations and do things. Just be mindful of the people that you allow to influence you. All right. So that was my network marketing spill.
And that's in
Let's
any organization.
go
That
ahead.
that
Yeah.
that message can translate or transcend uh, any organization, any
Yes, it
business,
can.
anything. But that's a amazing message. Absolutely.
Yep. So, life learned, lessons learned. You move forward. And in 2016, I got hit with quite a few things. My license got suspended. I was driving for Lyft and Uber. I couldn't make money. And so I was just kind of stuck at that point. I had no job, 2016, no money, and no way to make money consistently, right? Because I had no driver's license. I couldn't drive. Um, so with that, major debt. I think I had about $250,000 in debt at the time, or 150. One of those numbers. It was very bad, and it was 150. But anyway, who's counting? It's gone now. So I had that debt, and I had a lot of worry. In 2016, I actually almost committed suicide. I
Mm,
contemplated it so hard to where I was at a friend's house and I was staying at his house because I couldn't stay anywhere else. I didn't wear out any welcomes. I just was too proud to want to be around people and have to have them see me every day or wake up on somebody's couch or, um, let me hold off for a second because this is where it gets crazy right here. But um, it just became an embarrassing thing to
mhm,
have to want to wake up on somebody else's couch, or hell, I don't remember last time I really slept in a bed like that at that time,
mhm,
um, and to have to always ask for something. you know I was really proud. I always wanted to find a way to make money or do things, so I was still searching for those ways. But um, sleeping on people's couches, waking up with nothing to do, nowhere to go, phone may be on, may be off. I don't know, and you're waking up to so many uncertainties, like where I'm going to eat, what am I going to eat, you know, all these different things. And as a 30-year-old, you're feeling like, well, damn, is this life? Like, what can I do? And I was really proud. And I tell you, I couldn't bring myself to working at like a McDonald's and nothing like that. I was just past that part. But just different things. And I was like, man, I'm above this. And I wanted to get back in sales, but I despised sales at the time. I just couldn't. And between those times, again, feeling worthless, feeling like life was over, this was it. Uh, couldn't go see my son. He lived across town, so gas money. I had to hope and pray that some kind of money was coming from somewhere, and that it would just, you pray for those magical checks that pop up. Or we owe you a refund from this,
mhm.
or this back in this. Some check catches up with you, or some kind of money comes through, and that's what I kind of banked on at the times. Like, going and trying to work with my uncles in the barbecue business that they started back up.
When the bank says no, Airbnb hosting without owning the property. Read how one woman took a bank's rejection for financing and turned it into a lucrative Airbnb business without owning the property. Sean shares her step by step process from picking her niche market to furniture purchases, all which led her to achieving superhost status in her first 30 days of hosting with Airbnb. Learn how she made almost $20,000 in less than 7 months while still maintaining her full time job. New hosts are often unsure of what they need to do, making Airbnb harder than it has to be. Follow her story of determination and perseverance and learn how you can implement her practices in any of your entrepreneurial endeavors. Go to www.seanhenry.com. That's www.seanhenry to order your copy of When the Bank Says No, Airbnb hosting without owning the property.
I can definitely understand feeling proud and not wanting to face people, especially when I mean, we've already talked about how quickly, your mind was working and to be an entrepreneur and to be, self-sufficient. Like you said, you wanted to model yourself by the men that you saw in your family that I think it's safe to assume all had this persona of proud, and they are providing for their families and they're providing, for their household. So,
Right.
that's what you modeled yourself off of. And then, all the different businesses that you had, and the setbacks, and then being propelled forward to the next endeavor. So I can
Mhm.
definitely understand when you're strong like that. And then people always say, check on your strongest friend, you know
Right.
because as a strong person, people don't believe we have these weak
Right.
points in our life. Because why?
Right.
You're strong, Chester. What's wrong with
Right.
you? You're strong.
Yeah.
You bounce back from everything. So what has got you this low at this point? And then they wouldn't even understand, because they always hold you to this light of Chester
Right.
bounces back. You weren't going to do any kind of fast food or anything like that. You were above that. In that
Right.
state that you were in, what made you feel like you were above that? Especially when you just said you didn't want to live on somebody else's sofa.
Right.
You didn't have gas to even go see your son.
Right.
So what about your pride, or what about whatever was going on with you that wouldn't even allow you to get some type of a job?
Well, the part with that is the biggest part is not being able to get around, right?
Hmm.
And I say that, of course, you can walk, you can find a bicycle, whatever it is. But at that time, I was in a mindset of I'm not gonna make the money I want to make or need to make uh, with this, and plus they're gonna drain every bit of whatever they can out of me. And I had a personal pride about trading time for money and the relationship that's there and established. And it's like, all right, well, I can give my time and I can give my effort, in exchange for a profitable gain or for money, but at what cost? And I've worked at McDonald's. I did that, and I was in food service, in my younger years, but now I never saw myself doing that and going back to that. It's like, Chester, you've done that. You don't go back to that, something that you've already done in that regard, because now it's food services, McDonald's. You know that they're gonna work you to the bone and try to get whatever they can out of you for $7.15 or 25 cents, whatever the minimum wage was. So I just saw that, your education level, your mindset, everything was past that. So there's no need to backtrack. You wanna get forward. Plus, of course, the transportation was an issue. Is where you're gonna go, how you gonna get to these jobs and have reliable transportation other than having to walk everywhere. So those things played a factor in, my drive, my personal white hot burning desire to want more still existed. It just was so dormant that I couldn't think past certain things. I just wanted to get in a position that would allow me to get on to my next thing. So
Okay.
I had to look at like, hey, you know what? You can't give up that kind of time for these jobs. And it, to be honest, it probably really wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
was bad because I didn't have personal money, personal funds, but thank God for family. Thank God for friends and people that love you and you can share your story with and wouldn't mind helping, because without that part and that element in my life, that's what that network is, your net worth. Without that part, yeah, I might have went on ahead and pulled the trigger.
So can we talk about briefly about the dark time of you wanting to commit suicide?
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
so I was almost, let's call it, being in mental prison. I didn't do anything wrong. I just made some bad decisions that put me in a position where I exactly was and probably needed to be. So every day you're thinking, like, you see your buddies. I'm a 32-year-old, 31, 32-year-old male, and I'm sitting up here, uh, staying at a friend's house where I can't even afford to pay anything except $20 a month to keep the lights on. Um, Going back and forth with my brother because he's mad he has to take care of the phone bill without my contribution. Feeling bad that I can't support my son, who I really wanted to do something for. And just all of these things, I felt so much, so emasculated as far as being a male. It's like you're not really a man. You can't even take care of your basic things. Hell, you almost can't take care of yourself. But again, because I was thankful for the situation I was in, um, I was still hurting. I still felt like, dang, somebody else's, was sleeping on, again, might as well be on somebody's couch, but I'm living off somebody else's dime. I'm up here. He could tell me if he wanted to be a nasty person, he could say, hey, man, I need you to make sure my whole house clean, or I need you to make, he could have did that. That wasn't who he was, but if he wanted to, and that would have really took me over the edge. But I just felt like less of a man and less of a person and a big failure. Like I was failing my son. If my son had career day and he asked me to show up, I couldn't even think of showing up. I would have had to find an excuse as to not be there. And that bothered me. It bothered me to the point where, all right, Chester, well, I was so defeated I couldn't think past you need to do something about it. I hadn't gotten there yet. But I did keep looking at this black case that sat by my bed with a key in it, ready to turn, because I was paranoid somebody was going to break in the house and I was going to have to kill them. Or I was either thinking about, hey, what if I just put this gun in my head? How's it going to feel if I just pulled this trigger? And it got to the point where I started pulling out the gun and started looking at it, pointing it, kind of, you know, cocking it back, all these different things, pulling the magazine out, just you might as well say playing with it, getting used to it, getting familiar. And some part of me was like, man, you probably gonna pull this trigger one day. And so things kept getting bad. I just couldn't find a job, kept applying for things. Nothing was coming through. And my buddy was asking me after a while, he was like, hey, when do you think you're going to, you're going to get something that you can, start helping out or whatever it is. I'm like, I'm working on that. I got a couple things going. But I still felt bad. And after a while, I was like, just, there's no point in you being here, man. You're not contributing to anybody's life. You're not adding value anywhere. So why are you here? You know? And it got to the point where I started actually contemplating it. Like, this is about to be it. This is really going to be it. I was in the room crying one day, um, and just really at my lowest point, and I just started thinking, like, just go grab it, just go do it, and it'll be done. But when I tell you that my true character, my true person started talking to me, that conscience, that little voice, I started thinking about people other than myself. I was thinking about, who are you about to leave behind? What is your legacy going to be if you take your own life right now? If you become selfish in your thought and in action, and you leave this earth on your decision to do so, how's your son going to feel? How's your mom, your brothers, your sister going to feel? How's your family and friends going to feel? You're going to leave them with so many questions. You're going to make them feel bad. You're going to send them into a depressive state because now they're going to feel like they failed you as a father, mother, brother, or not father, but father figure, mother, brother, sister, friend, whatever it may be, partner, whatever it may have been, they were going to start, I was going to leave more bad than I was going to leave good. And in the midst of those tears, I started asking myself questions, and in those questions I started finding answers and seeking answers. And when I found those answers, I just saw that it just wasn't worth it for me to take my own life in that way. It wasn't my time yet, because if it was, I wouldn't be here.
Wow. That is so powerful. What what propelled you to ask yourself those questions? Because you are in a state of depression, you're in a
Right.
state of worthlessness, you're in a state of you just want it to be over. So what
Right.
makes you ask those questions, but more importantly, what makes you listen to listen to the answers to those questions?
All right. So that comes back to my personal development, and that's when I learned some things. And they said successful people ask how, not why. They look for answers. They look for reasons to either keep moving forward or continue doing what they were doing. And that part of me, I'm glad, was ingrained in me and instilled in me. Um, and the other part was, people don't complain down; they complain up. I also learned that within my personal development journey. And as I started thinking about these things, it's like, all right, Chester, well, you haven't stuck your arms out yet, and not T-Rex style where they're short and choppy, to where like a full extension. Reach out, see who's gonna grab your hand. You haven't done these things yet. You haven't uh, dropped your pride and let your guard down. You haven't brought anybody else into your problems, into your, proverbial boo boo, right? Um, you haven't brought nobody into that. So do that and try this. Find a way out. Don't try to find reasons to stay down and to kill yourself and to end it all. Find ways to get out of this, because that ain't you. And had I not had confirmations in my life early on and understood who I was and who I've become, had I not known that and had those things, then yeah, I might not have been strong enough to come up out of that.
Oh,
So yeah, it was just those types of things, and just understanding that I had to come out of that, and that realization. And once that happened, I bounced out of it, and I kept on moving.
wow. Well, I'm happy that you kept on moving, and because we definitely wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't
At
You wouldn't
all.
be blessing, anyone who's listening to this, because again, as an entrepreneur, even before even not even an entrepreneur, but the entrepreneurial life, we choose it. Um, Life in general is not chosen for us. How we live it is. Um, and thank God for you being able to remember the journey, the growth journey that you had in order to get you past that, and listening to
Right.
your own strength and your own truth, and your tribe,
Right.
the people around you. I had the same thoughts at 16, and as a 16-year-old, it's like, you haven't even experienced, well, according to you experienced a whole lot of stuff by 16, but for me, as at 16, I hadn't experienced a whole lot of a whole lot, but my household was not um happy, you know uh
Right.
and I didn't understand at 16 why these things were happening to me. I'm like, what did I do, to
Hmm.
deserve these things? I didn't cause any of these things. And I remember um, calling my friend to tell her bye. It was my best friend. I was
Hmm.
back in Mississippi. She was in California, and her and I keep in contact with each other via Facebook now. But I will forever love her, because I called her literally to say bye. And she's like, when you call someone and you're like, hey, I'm just calling you to say bye. It's like, what? Wait, run that back. And so she's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you're calling me to say bye? And I'm like, well, I don't know what I said, but basically I'm gonna kill myself.
Right.
Just take some pills and because I did think about it. It's like I don't want to hang myself. I don't. I was 16. I couldn't get a gun. I didn't want to cut
Right.
myself. And the crazy part is, I called myself a coward for wanting to
Mhm.
just take pills and go to sleep. You
Right.
know, um, but she told me, she says, "You're not getting off the phone with me until you change your mind." And this was the days of long distance calls. They cost.
Right
And
on.
she was just like, "You're not getting off the phone with me until you change your mind." And we talked. I don't know how long we talked. I think I almost was trying to convince her that I needed to do this, and um, essentially at some point we got off the phone, and she was just like, "You're not going to do this." And I didn't. Obviously, I'm talking to you, but I will forever be grateful for her. Okay,
That's
so
what's going on.
happier times. All right. So
Right.
we get past that. We decide to live, another day.
Mhm. Right.
And so you move on
Right.
to come up with the concept, or the initial concept of MobiChef.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
That's exactly how it happened. As things were going, I came when I came up with that concept. A lot of these stories kind of overlap, but it became a struggle, because Moby Chef was just an idea at the point. I didn't have money to push the idea forward. I couldn't grasp, the things. I couldn't get over this hump, and it just seemed like I was just at a dead end. And for like a year, I just almost let Moby Chef die. I talked about it. It was a great concept, but I just had no energy to really put into it. And this was like 2017, right after I came, actually 2018. Um, after I came up with the idea and was figuring things out, I got hit with things where it required money. So, in doing that, letting it die, I was like, I'm not going out here to talk about it. I'm just going to let it sit here for a little while and I'll revisit it. And then one day I got energy and I said, you know what? This is one of those shots. And I started thinking about the things that I've done, my successful failures. And it's like, man, you are meant to do something great and this could be it. Why are you about to give up essentially on what you've been blessed with and your mind? And so I had to change, the tune at that time and start thanking God for what he blessed me with, because this could be that opportunity. And I promised him that if he helped me get through this and help me get over this hump and get through all of these things, and continue to bless me, that I wouldn't return void what he on his promise. And I keep doing whatever it is that he guided me to do. And so, that's where I made that deal, at least one of them. And I just kept going. I found that energy and that motivation that I needed. And I started pushing the concept of Moby Chef. I started talking to people about it. I started preparing myself to go on to do pitches and different things like that. I developed my business plan. I started looking for business partners and investors. I was like, well, if you don't have the money, find somebody that does. How can you get this concept off the ground? It needs to happen. In asking those questions, how, I also came up with I started thinking about different ideas, different ways to make money. Well, I can't sell dope. I don't want to go to jail. I have a son, right? I can't do those things, even though
Hmm.
I probably do well, but, just on simple knowledge, but I just couldn't come to that. I couldn't bring myself to doing that because I had a son and now I had to be an example. Now I had to find something that my son could be proud of. And in feeling that embarrassment, feeling that shame of not having something, I knew Moby Chef was going to be part of that. But I still had to find a way to fund my dream. So now enter the crazy concept or an idea of getting back into the military. So after thinking about things, is like, what's the quickest way I can get to money right now? It was like, all right, well, you could get a check in a month. If you go into the military, you get paid for everything you do, but it's pretty much, right? So that's where I decided to want to go back into the Marines. But at that time, the Marines had me jumping through hoops that I wasn't ready to jump through. And I had to start looking at different options. And, my pride, if you ever talked to a Marine before and know a Marine, you know that they're very prideful about the branch of service that we're a part of. Because we look at other branches sometimes like, oh, they soft. They ain't the Marine Corps. They don't have the traditions and the honor and the same integrity that we do. And for the most part, I'm not going to argue being a part of a second organization. Now, I can't lie about that. I actually have way more love for what I went through and what I learned in the Marine Corps, the tradition and the esprit de corps that we got from there. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I just seeing that the pride wouldn't let me go to another organization at first. It's like, well, you know what? The Marine Corps ain't taking you right now. So you need to find your other options. And that's where the Army National Guard came into play. So I started doing my research, like who are these guys? What do they do? What's the difference between the Army and the Army National Guard and reserves? Why are there three different sections of the freaking Army? This is just weird. So I was asking all these questions, and then when I had enough answers, and I could see the path that I wanted to go down, I walked into the National Guard office and was like, "Sign me up. What do I need to do?" And from there, I was got that going, but I created an income. And I had to go to a little 7-week training or whatnot, kind of a refresher course to learn pretty much what I already knew, and just to do it. Great camping trip, I'll put it that way. But uh,
And they paid
from
you.
there, and they paid me, right? So I
Hmm.
came home with some money. I was able to pay some bills, get caught up on some things, and I was able to also now get rid of debt, right? So it gave me enough money to file bankruptcy. Oh my God. I was able to get rid of $150,000 debt
Oh,
in the
wow.
snap of a finger, right? So I got rid of everything and I got a fresh start. I was like, this is it. This is my ticket. This is my chance. This is my shot. Take full advantage. Get excited, right?
And
But
you
don't
filed
stop.
bankruptcy in what year?
That was 2018. I
Okay.
got back into the military in 2017.
Okay.
And 2018 is when I did the bankruptcy and I got my fresh start. And that
Okay.
was part of why I just like, as I was getting rid of that and doing the court stuff and, trying to get my life back on track, start from zero. That's where I kind of pushed MobiChef to the side because I knew, hey, it's there now, but I can't do anything with it. I still had to worry. I was getting accustomed to readjusted to the military life, going doing the drill thing and all this other stuff. Um, and then I was like, all right, well now you got this part. Now you need more money. Now you need a job, and I started using connections and networking and started building my network within the military to start campaigning for a job. And your character shines through, and I believe in that. So continue to be who you are. And so I was that. And then one day I got a call saying, hey, if you come up here, you got a resume. Yep. If you come up to this building right now, uh, you can enter, you can talk to this person. They want to meet you. I was like, really? They say, I told them all about you. I was like, all right, cool. Next thing you know, I get up there. They say, hey, we want to bring you on. And they say, we just want to meet you, see if you fit our culture, fit our work culture. I was like, all right, cool. And I'm all excited. I'm in civilian clothes. I'm just regular shorts. I don't know what the heck I had on. I was semi presentable. I'm like, man, they gonna tell me no as soon as I walk through this thing. But she was like, don't worry about it. I said, all right, cool. So lo and behold, I ended up getting a job months later. It took a while because they had to process me and make sure the resume was good, all this other stuff. And finally, when I almost gave up hope on getting that job, they came through and told me, hey, I was going to process in March of 2019 of last year. And so for the past year, um, you know, I was able to get a significant amount of more money from a job, and I was getting paid. So now I can fund my business venture. Now MobiChef can be refreshed. So I started putting money into uh, marketing and getting things and buying stickers, just small stuff. And I figured in that time I also did a pitch. I started putting together the business plan like I told you, and I did a pitch for Chameleonaire. It was like a 16-second pitch, and it was through his app called Convos. And he's a real down to earth guy. He asked me some questions about Moby Chef and the concept, and he eventually went with someone else. But it was cool to be able to even be considered for, I think it was either 10,000, I think it was $10,000. Um, to even be considered was just an amazing thing. And to have done that was a major feat and accomplishment. I pitched to somebody I used to listen to, who had the ringtone king is what I call him.
Right.
You know, and so now hearing him as a tech guy and how he is now and as an investor and venture capitalist, I wouldn't have minded partnering up with him. But it was a great start. And it let me know, hey, at least you can now break the ice with celebrities. You can talk to different people and you can't be afraid to talk to them because they're people and they're interested in things too, just like you are. So got there to that point and almost hit another roadblock. Was like, how do I carry MobiChef forward? What do I do next? And again, you're asking the right questions. And I think that's something that has been my baseline and throughout my whole life is I don't ask why, and to knock anything or to find doubt or fault. I ask how and why. Do I need to do this, or how can I do this? I ask the right questions. And when you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers, or you'll get pointed in the right direction.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sean Henry's Becoming. On this platform, we don't hurry our guests when it comes to telling their story. There are jewels offered in every episode that we want to avail to you, but we will respect your time. Although we know that you can stop, pause, and play each episode at your convenience, we cap each episode around the 60-minute mark, give or take. Tune in next week to hear what's in store for MobiChef with its creator, Chester Smith.